Rihanna's faith is the devil. She's always trying to steal from me. She only did her little music thing so that she can do witchcraft. I'm fighting with the devil himself. And that's why you got Rihanna over there all jealous. Because how am I, because her faith is the devil. Rihanna's faith is the devil, okay? I don't like her, and she's always trying to steal from me.
10 gunshots. One quiet Sunday afternoon. One of the most secure neighborhoods in Los Angeles. A neighbor was washing dishes when she heard it. I was a little shocked. You know, we don't hear that kind of thing in this neighborhood. Rihanna was home. Her children were allegedly inside. And a woman in a white Tesla had just unloaded an AR-15 style rifle at the front gate of their property before speeding away. By the time most people woke up and saw the headlines, the suspect was already in custody. Bail was set at $10.2 million. But here is what the headlines did not tell you. This woman had been talking for months, online, in videos, in posts, building up to this moment in ways that nobody around her seemed to take seriously enough.
Rihanna, when you die, God is taking me to my future. Yeah, she's a witch. She's a witch. I'm a watchman. She's a witch. Get that stupid girl out of here.
I keep telling her to stop harassing me. To stop harassing me. And she keeps doing it.
Today on Unseen Stories, we are sitting down with this case. All of it. Welcome back to Unseen Stories. If you are new here, this is the place where we take cases that the internet touched on and actually go deep. We do not skim. We do not sensationalize. We sit with the facts, we look at the evidence, and we have a real conversation about what happened and what it means. And today's story is one of those cases that stays with you. Not because of who was targeted, but because of everything that led up to that moment. The trail that was there. The videos that existed. The words that were spoken out loud, publicly, before a single shot was ever fired. So before we get into the details of what happened outside that Beverly Hills property, we need to go back. Way back. Because to understand the incident, you have to understand the person at the center of it. And to understand that person, you have to be willing to look at this situation with open eyes and without jumping to conclusions. That is what we are going to do today. Let's get into it. Now, most of you already know who Rihanna is. But let's just take a moment to establish the full picture here, because context matters. Robyn Rihanna Fenty. Born in Barbados. Discovered at a young age. Signed to a major label. And then she became one of the most dominant forces in the history of the music industry. 9 Grammy Awards. Over 250 million records sold worldwide. Chart records that most artists only dream about. And then she did something that very few artists at that level have ever done. She stepped away from music and built an empire. Fenty Beauty. Savage X Fenty. A skincare line. A fashion house. She became a billionaire. A self-made one. Through business. Through vision. Through work. By the time this incident happened, Rihanna was not just a pop star. She was a cultural institution. A mother of 3. A partner to rapper A$AP Rocky, whose real name is Rakim Mayers. And she was living in one of the most private, most secured residential areas in all of Los Angeles. Beverly Crest. Quiet streets. Large homes tucked into the hills. The kind of neighborhood where people move specifically because they want privacy. Because they want peace. And on one particular Sunday afternoon, that peace was shattered. Now here's where we need to slow down. Because this part of the story is the part that most of the coverage glossed over. And it is the most important part. Ivana Lette Ortiz. 35 years old. Originally from Florida. Orlando specifically. On paper, her life looked like that of someone who had worked hard and built something stable. She had a background in healthcare. She had worked as a speech therapist. That is not a simple profession. That requires education, certification, the ability to work with people who are struggling with communication. It requires patience and skill. People who knew her described someone who had professional training. Someone who, from the outside, appeared to have built a relatively normal life. She had a daughter. She had held down jobs. She had an apartment. Court records show she had been through some difficult personal seasons. A domestic situation in 2024 that led to legal filings. Some civil traffic cases over the years. An arrest in 2018 on drug charges that the state ultimately decided not to prosecute. None of that, on its own, paints the picture of someone heading toward what would eventually happen outside Rihanna's home. But then you look at her social media, and the picture starts to shift. Now I want you to pay close attention to this section, because this is where the story gets heavy. Ivana Ortiz was active online. Very active. She posted videos regularly. Long ones. Personal ones. Videos where she spoke directly into the camera about her life, her faith, her beliefs, and her feelings. Some of those videos were about everyday things. Gratitude. Scripture. Her thoughts on the world around her. But woven into those videos increasingly over time were references to celebrities. Specific ones. And the nature of those references was not what you would expect from a fan. She was not admiring these people. She was not celebrating them. She was addressing them directly, as if they were in a personal conflict with her. The name that came up most often was Rihanna. And what she said about Rihanna was not vague. It was not coded. She said it clearly, on camera, for the world to see. Listen to this. The way that Rihanna wants to kill me, she's the one who wants to kill me. And then in another video she said this.
Rihanna, when you die, God is taking me to my future. Yeah, she's a witch. She's a witch. I'm a watchman. She's a witch. Get that stupid girl out of here. I keep telling her to stop harassing me. To stop harassing me. And she keeps doing it.
This is a woman sitting in front of a camera. Not in private. Not in a journal. Publicly. Posting this content online. Saying these words about one of the most recognizable women on earth. And she was not done. Why you got Rihanna over there all jealous? Because how am I? Because her faith is the devil. Rihanna's faith is the devil, okay? I don't like her and she's always trying to steal from me and she has not ever put out any music to reach people. She only did her little music thing so that she can do witchcraft and so that she can steal from people. So everybody, please don't listen to her. Don't follow her. Don't give that girl any air, space, or time because she's stealing from you. Okay, she's stealing from you. Now let us be clear about something. There is zero evidence. None. That Rihanna ever communicated with Ivana Ortiz in any capacity. No direct messages. No public responses. No interactions of any kind. Investigators found nothing to suggest that Rihanna even knew this woman existed before that Sunday afternoon. So the question that hangs in the air is this. Where was all of this coming from? Because in Ivana's mind, this was not a one-sided situation. She believed Rihanna was aware of her. She believed Rihanna was responding to her through media, through music, through public appearances. She believed there was a back and forth happening that, from every piece of evidence available, was entirely constructed within her own perception. She posted about it openly. I keep telling her to stop harassing me, to stop harassing me, and she keeps doing it. She keeps harassing me. And in another post she described what she believed was a kind of negative spiritual energy being directed at her through Rihanna. There's an energy trying to literally throw a ray of force at me to push me down. You're not. I don't want you and you don't go there. And you know what? God's judgment is going to be overwhelming against you. When he grabs you and throws you down, I've already seen it. She also talked about going shopping and feeling like the presence of these celebrities followed her into stores. I already bought stock in Ulta and I have staked in Ulta. So now those energies can't harass me when I go into Ulta anymore. When I go into Ulta, they try. The devil tries to antagonize me or instigate against me by the pictures that are there. But you know what? I bought a stake in there and I said, you know what? Forget you. This is mine too. You're not going to be throwing bad energy at me when I'm coming to the store. Now how do you process that? How do you sit with the fact that a person was walking into a beauty supply store and feeling like a celebrity's image on a poster was personally targeting them? That is not a conversation about right or wrong. That is a conversation about a human being who was clearly in a great deal of pain. And the question that nobody seems to be asking loudly enough is this. Where was the support? Where were the people who could see what was happening and step in before it escalated? Because the videos did not stop. They kept coming. And they got more intense. Rihanna was not the only name she mentioned. She also posted about Cardi B, about Kim Kardashian, about Drake, each time with the same belief, that these powerful public figures were somehow engaged in a personal conflict with her, responding to her, watching her. She said about Cardi B, and these are her exact words. You can't with me, Cardi B. You're supposedly busy right now. You're supposedly busy right now. But you know who has the cutest outfit tonight? You know who's the cutest tonight? I am. I'm the cutest tonight. You ain't doing nothing to me. You ain't messing with me. Ain't nobody pressed. Ivana's not pressed. Is Cardi B pressed? And then she turned that same energy back to Rihanna with something that, in hindsight, reads like a warning that nobody caught in time. They still know it's me. I'm what you can't stand to see. I'm everything you want to be. Jealousy. Jealousy. She believed Rihanna was jealous of her. Let that land. One of the most successful human beings alive on this planet. A woman who built a billion-dollar empire from nothing. And someone believed that woman was jealous of them. Was targeting them. Was trying to destroy them. That is not something to laugh at. That is something to take seriously. Because when a person's perception of reality has drifted that far from what is actually happening around them, and nobody steps in, things can escalate. And in this case they did. At some point between posting those videos and the day everything came to a head, Ivana Ortiz made a decision. She was going to California. Now think about what that means logistically. Orlando, Florida to Los Angeles, California is over 2,000 miles. That is not a weekend trip. That is a deliberate cross-country journey. Days of driving. Multiple states. A clear and intentional direction toward one specific destination. Investigators believe she made this trip with purpose. She was not passing through. She was not visiting family. She was heading to Los Angeles. And based on everything she had posted online in the months leading up to that trip, the name at the center of her focus was Rihanna. Court records and investigative reports suggest that Ivana had also been involved in other situations that pointed to a pattern of believing she was being wronged by powerful institutions and individuals. In 2024, she filed an emergency petition against concert promoter Live Nation, the city of Orlando, and a music artist over a scheduled concert, citing issues about noise permits and public notice. The judge dismissed the petition. She had also been involved in a lengthy appeal over a traffic citation. A red light camera ticket. She fought that case for over 2 years, writing handwritten letters to judges, arguing that the traffic enforcement system was out of compliance. None of those things individually tell the whole story, but together they paint the picture of a person who felt deeply and persistently that the world around her was acting against her, that systems were unfair, that powerful people were unjust, that she was constantly being wronged. And somewhere in that mindset, Rihanna became the face of all of it. So she drove 2,000 miles, and she arrived in Los Angeles. It was a Sunday, just after 1 in the afternoon, Pacific time. Beverly Crest, a quiet residential neighborhood just north of Beverly Hills. Large homes, gated properties, the kind of street where the sound of anything unusual carries, where neighbors notice when something is off. A woman pulled up in a white Tesla near the front gate of Rihanna's property. What happened next took only seconds. Approximately 10 shots were fired from an AR-15 style rifle, directed at the front gate and the exterior of the property. Multiple bullet holes were visible afterward on the gate and on an Airstream trailer that was parked inside the property. A neighbor heard it from inside her house. I was just washing dishes in my house and I heard shots and I was a little shocked. You know, we don't hear that kind of thing in this neighborhood. Inside the home at that moment was Rihanna. Her children were allegedly inside as well. Reports on whether A$AP Rocky was present remained unclear in the immediate aftermath. None of the bullets penetrated the interior of the home. Nobody inside was physically harmed. But let us be completely honest about what 10 rounds from an AR-15 style rifle fired at a residential property means. That is not a warning. That is not a message. That is a level of force that, under any slightly different set of circumstances, could have ended lives. Security personnel were immediately alerted. Law enforcement responded fast. And almost simultaneously, an LAPD helicopter was launched to search the area. The white Tesla had already left the scene. Emergency dispatch audio that later circulated captured the urgency of those moments. Dispatchers described the suspect as a female, Hispanic, blonde hair, wearing a white shirt. They noted a passenger in the vehicle who had reportedly been seen holding a firearm. The vehicle itself was identified as a 2023 to 2024 Tesla, 4-door, with a paper license plate. That description went out immediately, and the helicopter found the car. Officers tracked the Tesla as it moved through Los Angeles, heading toward the San Fernando Valley. Approximately 30 minutes after that first emergency call, the vehicle was stopped inside a shopping center parking garage in Sherman Oaks. Ivana Lette Ortiz was taken into custody. without incident. Inside the vehicle, investigators say they recovered an AR-15 style rifle believed to be the weapon used in the shooting. The arrest happened quickly, but what followed in the hours and days after is where the story gets even more layered. News broke fast, and when it broke, the internet reacted the way the internet reacts. So, outrage, confusion. And then, as people started digging into Ivana's social media, something else started happening. People started watching the videos, and what they found was not what most people expected. Because when you watch those videos back to back, in full, without the noise of social media commentary around them, you are not watching someone who seems coldly calculated or strategic. You are watching someone who appears to be in genuine distress. Someone who built an entire internal world in which she was the central figure in a conflict with people who had no idea she existed. That is not a defense of what happened. 10 shots fired at a home where a mother and her children were present is serious. That is not something that gets minimized or explained away. But it is context. And context matters when we are trying to actually understand something instead of just reacting to it. Ivana was booked and charged with attempted murder. Her bail was set at $10.2 million. That bail amount caught people's attention, because that is not a standard number. That is a number that signals something. It signals that the court viewed this person as a significant risk, that the nature of the alleged offense was treated with the full weight of the law. Investigators began going through everything: her online history, her travel records, her prior legal cases in Florida. They were building a picture of who this person was and what had been happening in her life in the period leading up to that Sunday afternoon. And the more they looked, the more that picture came into focus. The court records from Orlando revealed a domestic situation in 2024, a temporary injunction that had been granted, arrests in 2023 related to a domestic matter, an appeal on a traffic ticket that had been going on for over 2 years. In one of her own court filings, Ivana had written something that is worth paying attention to. She wrote in July 2024 that things had taken a toll on her mental health and well-being. She said that herself, in writing, in a legal document. So the signs were documented. The distress was on record. And still, what followed was a 2,000-mile drive and 10 rounds fired at a residential gate. How does something get to that point? That is the question worth sitting with. Now, in the days following the incident, reports indicated that Rihanna and A$AP Rocky were still trying to process what had happened and why. Sources told the press that the couple themselves were trying to understand the motive. That even with everything investigators were uncovering about Ivana's online activity, there was still a level of disbelief. Because when you are living your life, focused on your family, focused on your work, and something like this lands at your front door, the shock of it does not go away quickly. And this is not the first time Rihanna's home had been the target of an unwanted intrusion. Prior to this incident, a separate case involved a 26-year-old man from Fullerton who had allegedly made it past the security of her Hollywood Hills property and remained inside for nearly 12 hours before being discovered. That individual faced charges including stalking and residential burglary. 2 separate incidents. 2 completely different people. Both fixated on the same woman. That pattern is something worth noting. Because Rihanna did not invite any of this. She did not engage with either of these individuals. She did not respond to videos or posts. She was simply living her life at a level of visibility that some people, for their own internal reasons, became consumed by. What does that say about the relationship between fame and safety in this country? What does it say about the cost of being that visible, that successful, in a world where anyone with a phone and an internet connection can build an entire narrative around you without you ever knowing? Those are not easy questions. Those are real conversations that celebrities, their teams, and law enforcement are having more and more often. And those conversations are becoming increasingly urgent. After the arrest, the legal process began to move forward. Ivana faced a serious charge. Attempted murder is not a charge that gets treated lightly in the state of California. The evidence against her, from what investigators and reporters described publicly, included the recovered weapon, the dispatch audio, the physical evidence at the scene, and the extensive trail of online content she had posted herself. That last piece is significant, because in most cases, building a picture of intent and state of mind requires investigative work. Interviews, records requests, witness testimony. In this case, Ivana had essentially documented her own mental and emotional state for months on a public platform. The videos were there. The posts were there. The words were there. Whether that documentation ultimately helps or hurts her legal case depends entirely on how her defense approaches it. And many legal observers and commentators noted early on that a mental health evaluation would almost certainly be a part of these proceedings. Because the central legal question in a case like this is not just what happened. It is the state of mind of the person when it happened. And that is a question that requires a level of nuance that does not fit neatly into a headline. California law takes intent seriously. The prosecution would need to establish not just that shots were fired, but that they were fired with the specific intent to cause harm. The defense, on the other hand, would likely argue that Ivana's state of mind at the time reflects something that goes beyond a straightforward criminal act. None of that makes what happened acceptable. But it is how the legal system works. And understanding that process is part of understanding this case fully. As of the time of this video, the case continues to move through the legal system. Full details of any proceedings, hearings, or outcomes beyond what was publicly available at the time of this story will be covered as more comes to light. Now here is where we step back from the facts of this specific case and talk about something larger. Because this story is not just about one woman and one incident outside one house in Beverly Hills. This story is about something that has been building in our culture for a long time. And it deserves a real, honest conversation. We live in an era where fame is more visible than it has ever been in human history. Every move a celebrity makes is documented, photographed, posted, discussed, analyzed, replayed. And because of the way social media works, that content does not just exist in the world. It enters people's daily lives. It shows up on their phones. It becomes part of their day-to-day experience in a way that can, for some people, blur the line between public figure and personal presence. Most people can engage with celebrity culture in a healthy way. They enjoy the music, follow the career, feel inspired or entertained, and maintain a clear understanding of the boundary between admiration and real relationship. But for some people, that boundary becomes unclear. And when it becomes unclear in the context of someone who is already struggling internally, the results can be dangerous. Now what do we do with that as a community? Because the easy response is to look at a case like this and say the person was simply dangerous. Lock them up and move on. And yes, accountability matters. Consequences matter. Public safety matters. But if we stop there, we miss something important. We miss the fact that there were videos, months of them, public ones, in which a person was clearly communicating a level of distress that should have triggered something. A conversation, a welfare check, some kind of support from someone in her life who cared enough to say, "I see what is happening and we need to get you some help." Where were those people? Were they watching the videos? Did they see them? Did they take them seriously? We do not know all of those answers, but they are worth asking. Because the lesson here is not just about celebrity security, though that matters. The lesson is about the cost of ignoring mental health challenges when they are visible. The cost of looking at someone who is clearly not okay and deciding it is not your place to say something. When do we decide that the people around us matter enough to have the hard conversation? When do we decide that getting someone help, even when it is uncomfortable, even when they might resist it, is more important than keeping the peace? This case could have unfolded very differently. At multiple points along the way, there were opportunities for something different to happen. For someone to step in. For a system to catch what was happening. For help to reach someone before the situation reached a point of no return. That is not an accusation against any individual. That is an observation about how these things tend to unfold. And it is a call for all of us to pay closer attention. To the people in our lives who seem to be struggling. To the content we see online that raises questions about someone's well-being. To the signs that we sometimes dismiss because they are uncomfortable to confront. Fame does not protect you. Success does not protect you. Having a gate and a security team does not fully protect you either, as this case makes clear. And being a regular person with a regular life does not mean that the people around you are paying attention to what you actually need. Rihanna built something extraordinary. From a small island to a global empire. Through talent, through resilience, through an almost supernatural level of work and vision. And on one Sunday afternoon in Los Angeles, a stranger pulled up to her home and fired 10 rounds at her gate. She walked away physically safe. Her family was physically safe. But the experience of having that happen, of knowing that someone across the country had been posting videos about you for months, had made the decision to drive 2,000 miles to confront a conflict that existed only in their own mind, and had shown up at your home with a weapon that does not just disappear, that stays with you.
The allegations that exist so far. On March 8th at approximately 1:20 p.m., Ms. Ortiz is accused of driving up to the residence of Rihanna, at which point she fires from her semi-automatic weapon multiple times at the residence. In that residence, Rihanna was there with her partner, her 3 children, her mother, and 2 staff people, representing 8 of the 10 of the counts of dealing with an assault with a semi-automatic firearm. In addition, Ms. Ortiz is accused of firing at a neighboring residence that had 2 additional individuals. That is why there are 10 felony counts of assault with a semi-automatic firearm. And there are 3 felony counts of shooting at inhabited dwellings. There are actually 2 dwellings at Rihanna's residence. There's a Airstream camper in which 2 individuals were located, as well as a house on that property, and then there was the neighboring property. That is why there are 3 felony counts of shooting at an inhabited dwelling or camper. What happened after Ms. Ortiz shot at these various residences and people is that she then traveled through Beverly Hills, eventually ending up in Sherman Oaks. And then at that point, within hours, she was arrested. I very much want to appreciate and publicly thank both the Los Angeles Police Department and the Beverly Hills Police Department for their very quick, timely, and prompt actions leading to the arrest of Ms. Ortiz on these charges. Ms. Ortiz, if and when convicted of these charges, is facing up to life in state prison. Her bail has been set by the court at $1,875,000. And part of the reason I wanted to convey this message is as follows. I want everyone to understand in this county that you should absolutely feel safe in your residence and in your neighborhood and in your community. That safety is something we will work incredibly hard to protect.
And Ivana Ortiz, whatever the legal outcome of her case, is a human being whose life clearly went somewhere that she could not navigate alone. That does not erase the seriousness of what she allegedly did, but it adds a layer of tragedy to this story that we should not be too quick to ignore. Because the most uncomfortable truth in all of this is that both of these women are human beings. One who built an empire and had it threatened by a stranger, and one who built a world in her own mind that led her to a place of real harm. And somewhere between those 2 realities is a lesson about how much we still have to learn as a society about fame, about mental health, and about the way the internet can amplify pain in ways that we are only beginning to understand. This is Unseen Stories. We do not do easy takes here. We do not do hot reactions. We sit with the full weight of what happened and we try to come away from it with something real. If this story gave you something to think about, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave your thoughts below. And if you are not subscribed yet, now is the time. We will see you on the next one.